What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the best power rankings on the Interspheres. We have a crazy week 6 to react to, some wild movement here, some of the largest movers in the history of the TFG power rankings ahead of us. Before we get there, please do hit that like button down below. Really helps support this channel and helps me out more than you know. So please take a second to hit that thumbs up down below. All right, starting at the bottom, number 32, the New York Jets. We even left them off last week as a joke. This week they will make the list, but they are going to be a tier below everyone else in the league. This is one of the worst football teams, at least of the decade. Poorly coached, they lack talent, poor quarterback play, you name it. This is just disgusting. They have been well documented and definitely worthy of the worst spot in the league. Then a tier gap up to just a couple teams ahead of us here, and they're going to be in the NFC West. We have the Washington football team and the New York Giants. We see why they're ranked so closely together. These two guys slopped it out for a gross finish in which the Giants came out victorious. For the Washington football team, they continue to be anemic on offense. They did go back to Kyle Allen as the starter, being the mobile guy that can run around behind this terrible offensive line, but they stink. And then for the New York Giants, I've said it over the last couple weeks, they are at least playing some defense if you want some signs for optimism here, but the offense continues to stink. It's not that Daniel Jones has a lot of help out there. You know, you can't blame it all on him. He's had his moments. He actually threw a beautiful dime to Darius Slayton, who's a good player in his own right, on a tough third down, threw out of the back corner of the end zone for a touchdown. But at the same time, the pick he threw in this game, he was lucky, did not cost his team the game. So the Giants and Washington and the Jets all stink. Then we're going to have a tier gap up to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to drop down 2 spots. They are starting to, encroach this bottom group of football teams. Gardner Minshew is fun, but this defense is a real problem. And Gardner Minshew himself, I think teams have figured out a formula here. If you run man coverage against him, he just lacks some of those physical traits, whether it's the ability to throw guys open on tough downfield throws against man coverage, or the ability to truly run for big chunk plays against man coverage that you see from some of the top scramblers in the league. So he's revealing some of his flaws against the Texans, against this week the Lions, and who was it earlier this year? Was it the Dolphins, I think? Yeah, the Dolphins. He's had his 3 worst games against those teams that are very man-heavy defenses. So teams starting to figure something out there on Gardner Minshew, who is starting to look like he is not the quarterback of the future. Then we have the Denver Broncos. I'm sorry, Broncos fans, you're only going to climb up 1 spot. It was a big win against the Patriots. I just need to see more. You know, Drew Lock has made some plays, but it feels like he is very almost random and erratic as a passer. He's not particularly accurate downfield. He's not very sharp or making quick decisions. Some really eye-opening interceptions late in this game. He was lucky that the defense made the stops they did at the end of the game to hold on to this one. So I'm not really buying into the Broncos quite yet. I am excited that we do get to see Drew Lock because it does make this team at least watchable. But as far as being a good football team, I'm not quite ready to overreact to the 1 win there. And then we have one of the largest fallers. Frankly, these next 2 teams are some of the largest fallers in the history of my power rankings. I try to be as accurate on a week-to-week basis and not move these guys too much. But look, man, the Dallas Cowboys are a disaster. It starts with the defense, who is just one of the worst in the league, simply put. And then you take Dak Prescott away from this offense. They clearly are not the same unit. They aren't playing with the same confidence. They're running the ball on first down every single time. Andy Dalton actually made some plays, and Twitter was just destroying and dismantling Andy Dalton. I mean, look, Monday Night Football, Zeke was the primary reason they lost this game. 2 fumbles. The offensive line, I would say, is next. Then you point to a dropped touchdown by Michael Gallup when Andy Dalton was trying to lead a comeback. Then you point to the refs, who threw another interception at Andy Dalton on a blatant pass interference that went from what should have been a 15-yard automatic first down to an interception. I mean, everything was stacked against the Cowboys in this game, but that has been the moral of their season. So, man, the Cowboys just can't do anything right. Mike McCarthy, could he be one and done in Dallas? I thought that they had a good chance of beating the Arizona Cardinals. I thought they would look much more competent and come out ready to compete and try to take this NFC East, and they just didn't. So they are going to drop down 10 spots. And another team that I expected to attempt to get their season back on course this week is the Minnesota Vikings, who are dropping down 8 spots. They are 1-5. They lost to a hapless Falcons team. And when you can't move the ball against the Falcons defense, you know you've got a problem. Kirk Cousins, one of the worst starts of the season for any quarterback. They are locked into him contractually. It is a disaster here. At least you have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. That's about all you have going for you on this team, and the defense stinks as well. And then the Falcons are going to be the team climbing up here, +3 to the 25th spot. We'll see if they have rejuvenation here with Dan Quinn gone. I don't feel like this is a scenario where they're going to start playing harder over the course of the season because they hated their head coach or anything. I don't know. I still think this defense is terrible despite how they played this week against the Vikings. And Matt Ryan's going to have to be pretty freaking amazing to turn this team into any sort of relevant contender. Then we have the Cincinnati Bengals. They remain a tough out with Joe Burrow and what he's able to do, able to create with that bad offensive line. AJ Green bounced back this week. They are just a solid football team, not an easy out. But as long as you don't make a lot of mistakes, you're probably going to beat the Bengals. Same thing can be said here about the Detroit Lions. They're going to round out this tier here of just kind of competitive teams that are just not playoff caliber teams. The Detroit Lions had a big win this week over the Jacksonville Jaguars. They certainly matched up well. We talked about how man cover teams can really go up against Gardner Minshew. But I am buying into this offense. Matthew Stafford has been more good than bad this year. The offense, now that they have Kenny Golladay back, they have that real vertical threat. They got DeAndre Swift going this week. The offensive line is legit. Detroit could make some noise here. I'm not buying in quite yet, but this was a big win for them. So then we're going to have a tier gap up. And we've got 5 teams in this next tier, and these guys are teams that are probably not playoff teams, but teams that are certainly really tough outs. And while that sounds like the last tier, I can actually picture these teams making the playoffs. So that's going to start with the LA Chargers, who really would need to turn things out because of their record, turn things around because of their record. But they've been so close to winning a bunch of games against good competition the last few weeks that I do think that they're a cut above the teams that we've discussed to this point. Justin Herbert has been really nice for this offense. They've got playmakers. They have upside on defense. They just need to straighten some things out. This is looking like Chargers teams of years past where they just can't finish close games. No Phillip Rivers, but it's been more of the same. And you kind of start to look at Anthony Lynn to be a big reason for that. Then we have the Miami Dolphins, who have been just dominant the last 2 weeks, back-to-back blowouts against a different level of competition between the Jets and the Niners, but they are just a really solid football team. The main thing here, of course, is how long can you rely on Ryan Fitzpatrick to be playing as well as he has. History would tell us that is due to drop off. And then you get into how good is Tua. But the defense is playing really well. Xavier Howard is reaching his potential, looking like a top corner in this league. And the offense showing that they have at least some talent in there. They're well coached, so they're a really solid football team. I don't know if it'll be a playoff bound for the Dolphins, but certainly a competitive team right now. And then the Houston Texans, they're actually going to climb up 3 spots. I mean, look, if the coin landed the other way, they probably beat the Tennessee Titans, and most of us know that. They put up 36 on Tennessee, a great comeback. They won the week before. They're looking much more like the the Texans of old. A very tough out. I think they're going to put up a good fight against the Green Bay Packers this week as well, despite the fact that they're, 1-5? I mean, look, they've played 3 of the best teams in the NFL, 4 of the best teams in the NFL. And they barely lost to the Vikings as well. So they're a very tough team. Just things have not gone their way this year. And then we have the Carolina Panthers, Rough week this week going up against that Bears defense. Was just a little bit too much for Teddy Bridgewater. Not a particularly good matchup, to be honest, because the Panthers defense is just pretty young, and I don't trust them to really shut out anybody, even Nick Foles and the Bears. But regardless, the Panthers are who they are right now. They're a capable offense, a below-average defense with a bunch of young guys that can make some plays, but a really fun team that is well coached and going to compete on a week-to-week basis. Then we have the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to climb up a spot. This is mostly just because Carson Wentz looks like Carson Wentz, which is, to me, a top 10 quarterback in this league. He's been really good over the last really 2.5 games. You go back to the end of that Niners game where they came back and won. I think they will be certainly energized now that they have some of these tough games behind them. They just got the Ravens and Steelers and Niners out of the way. So getting that schedule a little easier, getting their quarterback kind of back in a rhythm, and the rest of the division is a complete disaster. I don't think the Eagles are a very good team, but they are certainly, I think, trending up after almost pulling out a game that they were not supposed to win against Baltimore. Then we have a tier gap up, and it's going to be the New England Patriots in their own tier here at 17. I did not know what to do with this team. I love this defense. I love Coach Belichick. I don't love this offense. I like the offensive line, but other than that, they have no skill players. Cam Newton is not the type of quarterback that can carry an offense, especially when they have to pass the ball. Man, this is a tough team to predict right now because I could see them going the rest of the season only winning 2 or 3 games. I could see them turning this thing around, having an elite defense, winning 10, 11, 12, as we've seen from Belichick in years past. It's just going to have to be wait and see, but not a good look this week. Really incapable of moving the ball against the Denver Broncos. And Cam Newton, he's got to move a little more in that pocket. I know he doesn't have great receivers, and it certainly doesn't help, don't get me wrong. But you can't just stand flat-footed in the pocket and hope everything's going to work out for you. It was really concerning what he was doing in the pocket this week against Denver. So, like I said, they were alone in that tier of just I don't know where this thing's going to go. But this next tier are teams that I think certainly would be disappointments if they don't make the playoffs. That are good football teams that do need a few things to go right, but certainly have the expectations to sneak in there. So that's going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. Big win against the Cowboys this week. They are 4-2. I believe they play the Seahawks coming up twice in the next 3 weeks. I think they said that on the broadcast. I could be off on that, but that's going to be a big test for the Cardinals. I like this team. I don't love this team. I'm still not entirely in on Cliff Kingsbury. I like some of the play callers. They've still been hit or miss trying to push the ball downfield. There were some moments in that Monday night game where Kyler was really inaccurate with the football. So there's been some missing gears on this team, and I still don't really trust the defense. But they certainly are trending up after this week. Then we have the Chicago Bears. Bears fans, again, are going to be disappointed. They beat the Panthers. They matched up really well. It's a defensive-oriented team. They've had a pretty cakewalk of a schedule to this point. They're going to climb up a spot here. I'm never going to be too optimistic about one of the worst offenses in the NFL sustaining, especially in a year where you just don't have crowds that can really help a pass rush like Chicago be consistent over the course of the season. So they're a fine team. They're 5-1. I feel pretty good about that ranking. Some people will hate it, though. Then we have the Indianapolis Colts. Was looking terrible after the first quarter. They were down 21-0 to the Bengals. I was on Twitter saying I'm kind of done with the Phillip Rivers experiment. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jacoby Brissett, and then Phillip Rivers comes out and has the best quarter in the history of his career. He went off in the second quarter, and then things just kind of went the way they expected in the second half. Where the line play was just so much better. Julian Blackmon at free safety with the game-cinching interception. He's looking like a steal in the third round, a potential upgrade to a fan favorite, Malik Hooker, which is saying a lot. So I like the Colts. I don't love the Colts. Really the same story there for the last 2 teams and the next 2 teams. So the Cleveland Browns are going to drop down 2 spots. Again, I like them. I don't love them. I wanted to see if they were welcomed at the big boy table this week, going against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they very much proved that they are not welcome, at least not yet. Baker playing with broken ribs, but was just terrible in this game. No way around it. Looked like he didn't belong. Turnovers, bad plays, you name it. The line just got obliterated by the Steelers on both sides of the ball. So they're going to drop down to a little more pretender than contender right now, but still a good football team that's had some impressive moments this year. Then we have the Las Vegas Raiders are going to stay put. They were on bye this week, coming off that big win against the Chiefs. And then the Los Angeles Rams, going to drop down 4 spots. The offense the last 2 weeks has certainly slowed down. Jared Goff has looked a little bit more like Jared Goff. Again, a really good football team, but they are going to wrap up this tier of teams that are playoff contenders, but to me, not really Super Bowl contenders. Like, even if they get in, I can't really picture any of those last 6 teams winning a Super Bowl, and that is going to be this entire next tier. This is the final tier here, the top of the NFL. This is kind of a big thing this week. Really starting to widen the gap here at the top. I don't think we have a true tier above team or teams right now of, these are the teams that are going to the Super Bowl, like feeling really confident in that. I actually think these next top 10 teams, the gap between them is not all that wide. So it's going to start with the San Francisco 49ers, who looked like their old self on Sunday Night Football. Good to see them getting Debo, Ayuk, Kittle going. Jimmy Garoppolo completely responded this week, doing what he does well, and that is playing that point guard, being efficient over the middle of the field, utilizing that intermediate middle of the field so well, and just get the ball in the hands of these playmakers. This is probably the hardest team to tackle right now, between Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo. These running backs, they're just awesome, and they definitely showed why they were the NFC champions again last night. On Sunday night. They certainly have their problems. However, this defense is not the same. The offensive line is not the same. So then we have the Buffalo Bills are going to drop down 3. They've lost 2 in a row. The defense is certainly becoming a concern. The offense has taken a step back, just not being quite as efficient and consistent. Josh Allen has certainly shown his warts a little more over the last 2 weeks, though he is a much better player than he's been in his first several seasons. So I do still like the Bills. I think this offense is really good. I think this defense can click on a few more notes, and they can absolutely still be a low-end Super Bowl contender. And then we have the New Orleans Saints next. They were on bye. They continue to find ways to win and score 30 points every week, despite the fact that Drew Brees just can't push the ball that far downfield. I actually trust that this defense will figure some things out. I think they're still Super Bowl contenders, although at the lower end of this tier. And then we have the Tennessee Titans. Titans fans, I went at it with them on Twitter because I don't think that they fully earned this win. I don't think any team that wins on the opening drive of overtime deserves their win full-heartedly. I look at that closer to a tie. I don't look at the Texans' loss as a full loss. The rules are just, objectively terrible. And if you disagree with that, I suggest you take a philosophy course. It's an offensive league. 4 of the last 5 drives in this game were touchdowns. The defenses were exhausted. There was no sign that whoever lost that coin toss was going to get a stop. And sure enough, just as Deshaun Watson knew when they flipped the coin, he knew that they lost the game because of that coin toss. And sure enough, 5 plays later, whatever it was, the Titans win. I'm not trying to take everything away from the Titans here. I'm moving them up 2 spots. They are now in the Super Bowl tier. I am acknowledging Ryan Tannehill has been awesome. Mike Vrabel is a really freaking good coach. They have really good playmakers. On the other hand, they probably lose this game if they lose the coin toss, and probably more important, they lose Taylor Lewan, their starting left tackle, for the season this week, so that hurts as well. So I do like a lot of the things we're seeing from the Titans. At least take solace in the fact that they are moving up 2, but I do still think there are some flaws about this team after they almost lost to the Houston Texans. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to climb up 8 spots here. Huge week for the Bucs. This is really what I talked about with the Bucs heading into the year. They are showing that to prove out perfectly well. I'm very proud of my analysis of the Bucs. I said they would start slow. Now the Chris Godwin injury clearly was an impact for that. There's no question that he is the number one receiver on this team. Now that he was back out there, Mike Evans kind of shut down in this game, didn't see the ball a whole lot. But what has really impressed me and has been something I predicted is this Bucs defense to emerge as one of the top 3 or 4 units in the league, being a really young defense. And beyond that, predicting that this secondary would emerge as one of the best in the league, and they absolutely, made me look good for that one this week. A dominant performance by the secondary, whether it was Carlton Davis or Jamel Dean, who is just an under-the-radar stud right now. You got to throw those linebackers in there if you want to talk about coverage. Antoine Winfield, just a dominant defensive performance from the Bucs. I want to see it on a more consistent note. That hasn't been there all season, and I'm not, totally thrilled with this offense quite yet. They're a very good offense, but yeah, the Bucs are going to climb up 8 spots this week, looking much more like the team that I predicted to go to the NFC Championship this year. And then the Green Bay Packers, who got embarrassed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are going to drop down 4 spots. Back to my preseason ranking of the team, which is fitting because this looked like the 2019 Green Bay Packers, who were a good, not great team, who didn't really show the ability to have a counterpunch when they got down because of how bad this receiving core is. Yes, they have Davante Adams. I'm going to say it, Davante Adams is actually a pretty soft receiver. He's really good. He gets open and he can dominate certain games, but when the coverage is tight, he is not a reliable wide receiver. He's not a great contested catch guy. He'll drop things. He was the reason for Aaron Rodgers' second interception. Beyond that, they have nobody. So they just can't open up the passing game no matter how much they want to with Aaron Rodgers. This was the first week where it came back to the draft and it came back to the offseason. And it's like, why did this team not get playmakers? Look at the 49ers who run this same offense. The Packers are trying to replicate them, yet the Niners have George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. The Packers don't have one of those guys where they just say, let's put the ball in his hands and let him create yards after the catch. The Packers are a flawed football team. You also don't want to ignore the fact that they were the best team in football through the first 5 weeks of the season. This can still be a very good football team, and they're going to get Allen Lazard back here at some point, and maybe this was an eye-opening thing where they actually make a move for a wide receiver for once in their goddamn life. That seems pretty unlikely given Brian Gutekunst's track record for an unwillingness to improve this team's roster. So -4 for the Green Bay Packers. I think they will bounce back. It was a really rough week, but certainly concerning, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs pass the Packers up in the coming weeks if this trend certainly continues. Then we have at number 4 the Pittsburgh Steelers, +1 here for what is clearly a dominant football team. The line play on both sides of the ball, remarkable for the Steelers. This defensive line was eating a really good offensive line in Cleveland, which is scary. And then offensively, they're a little boomer bust. They lean a little bit too much for my liking on big chunk plays from these receivers, but these receivers are so talented that I think you can lean on that. Big Ben hasn't been perfect, but he's been a clear upgrade to what they had at quarterback last year. So between that and Chase Claypool, you're getting, a top 12 offense and a top 5 defense and a really freaking good football team. And we're going to get to see them play the Baltimore Ravens in a few weeks on Thanksgiving, which is really, a month from now, but I'm already looking forward to that matchup Thanksgiving night. But yeah, the Baltimore Ravens are going to climb up 1. They've been really solid since losing to the Chiefs. They've done something that I really respect, and that's, they're experimenting a little bit. They're finding new ways to win, knowing that they can't really lean so much on the ways that they won last year through their traditional read options. For one, they're trying to pass the ball a lot more, and we've seen Lamar Jackson be very uncomfortable with that, but I think getting those reps will at least improve him to somewhat of a level when they do have to play the Chiefs again, being more comfortable, having to drop back in those traditional pass sets. But beyond that, something I pointed out on Twitter heading into the week is with these linebackers and safeties going so wide to stop Lamar on the read options, which has been very effective this season. I noticed a trend the week before when they were playing... Who was that against the week before? Anyway, it doesn't matter. The inverted veer, where it's actually Lamar running up the middle instead of trying to get him in space on the edge. Well, pushing those linebackers wide comes at a cost. And sure enough, Baltimore runs it against Philadelphia and rips off like a 40-yard touchdown up the middle for Lamar on that inverted read option. So they're finding some new tricks here, which is big for this team. We knew coming into the year that they would have to do it, and as we predicted they would, they're achieving that. And then we have the Seattle Seahawks climbing up a spot here on the bye week. Their style is very specific. They're going to get big chunk plays off play action. They're going to try to run the ball when they can, and they're not going to play a whole lot of defense. But Russell Wilson is going to do his thing. They're the number 2 team in football and the best team in the NFC West, and then the Kansas City Chiefs are going to climb up back to that number 1 spot. They bounce back. They beat the Bills. This team, they're just, to me, the best team in football, the most well-rounded team in football. I probably should have never overreacted to them losing to the Raiders, but they can beat you in so many ways, as they showed this week. Bad weather in Buffalo, well, they'll just run it 35-plus times or whatever it was and play good defense. I know it didn't work against the Raiders. It's not a perfect defense, but they're certainly a solid defense. They have Patrick Mahomes. They have all these playmakers. They got a great play caller. They can run the ball. They're getting Le'Veon Bell now. They are back to me for being the best team in football, but they are not that tier gap above everyone like I said they were several weeks ago. So certainly a lot to play out here, especially in the top 10, that interesting tier gap of teams emerging from 11 to 16 is a fun week to rank. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys like the video, and we'll see you in the comments down below. Cheers as always, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace out.